everyone, it's Nicole here, the Harmonious Hippy. Happy New Year! We made it to 2021. It was a really rough year for almost everyone. Obviously, there's a lot going on, a lot of change. Everyone's kind of stuck at home depending on where you are. So I thought that for our very first practice for the new year, we would do just a nice practice that I like to do before bed. Just to kind of let any last energy out that I have and sort of stretch myself out. I find if I haven't done yoga in a while, I notice it a lot when I'm sleeping because I have issues with my hips and my knees and I kind of am sore while I'm laying down. So this is a really good practice that you can do. It's not too long and it's great for just doing like right before bed to kind of like get your body ready to settle down, and it's not too active so you're not going to feel like your heart rate get up too much. So we are just going to have our mats with us. If you'd like to have a pillow with you to sit on, or if something to place under your knees, you can have that as well. Like I said, it's not going to be too active for this one. We are going to get our new year started off right, and what is a better way to start off a new year and start new routines by having a great bedtime routine. It is so important to sleep. Oh my gosh, and I'm saying this staying up way too late. I had 2 weeks off at Christmas, so I have been staying up late and sleeping in late and kind of got myself turned around, but getting back to work, I will be obviously starting my routine back, trying to get as much sleep as I can. Sleep is so good for you. So this is going to be a really good practice for that, to prep you for your night and get you feeling nice and snoozy and ready for bed. So just grab your mat. You can grab some water or tea if you'd like. If you have some bedtime tea, that would be great as well. And let's get started. Okay guys, so starting off seated, we're just going to start with a quick meditation, nothing too long. We're just going to tune into our bodies. So you can come sitting on the ground if you'd like to sit in a chair for this, or on your couch or something like that. You can go ahead and do that before moving off of that prop. I'm sitting on some pillows. Try and get your hips above your knees if you can. And for this being a bedtime, nighttime practice, we're going to do palms face down for grounding. So palms down, rising up tall through the spine. You can roll the shoulders up and back a couple times. And beginning to breathe in and out through the nose. Bringing the attention to your breath. And just tuning into the body here. Just getting a picture of what that looks like today, how you feel. Taking a quick scan down through the body, starting at the top of the head. Just slowly making your way down. Not spending too long in any one spot, but just observing, noticing if there's any sensation anywhere, any tension, heaviness or lightness. Just see what your body is feeling like right now at this moment. That body scan, just tuning into your breath, finding your anchor point. This is the spot where you most notice the breath today. This could be your nostrils, your throat, your belly. No wrong answers here. And just focusing on that point and noticing what it feels like for the breath to flow in and out. And just taking a couple of cleansing breaths here to prepare us for our physical practice. So deep inhale in through the nose. And opening the mouth, exhale, sigh. Do that twice more. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, sigh, let that go. And inhale through the nose one more time. And release. You can leave the eyes closed here, and just begin to bring some movement into the hips. We're going to start to rotate in circles. These circles can be big or small. Just moving in one direction at first. Just starting to bring some motion into the hips, maybe into the spine. You can start to maybe bring your neck into this motion. Think of inhaling forward and exhaling back. Feeling grounded. And feeling those joints and muscles start to wake up a little bit. Switching directions. Again, circles can be as big or as small as you'd like. Just whatever feels good here. And just completing your last circle, coming back to center. We're just going to stretch the wrists out a little bit. So bringing the palms of the hands together, spreading the fingers out wide and pressing the pads of the fingers in towards each other, and starting to lift the elbows while pressing the wrists down. Just holding this here, making sure that you are keeping pressure in the fingers. This is going to help relieve any overt tension in the wrists. And just pressing down as far as is comfortable. You might feel a deep sensation here, and that's fine, but if you're feeling any pain, any serious pulling, then you want to ease off a little bit. And you can start to kind of tilt your fingers in towards your chest. See how that feels. And then beginning to rotate the fingers down. Just rotate the hands forward and start to twist the wrists down. And then you want to bring the wrists up and the elbows can come down, if that's possible for your wrists. Not for me. That's why we keep doing this, right? Ideally, for perfect wrist health in a perfect world with no injury or strain or anything like that, your fingers would be pointing straight down. But you want to keep your shoulders relaxed and keep the palms pressed together. And now beginning to rotate the fingers back up, pressing the wrists down, elbows up. Perhaps rotating the fingers in towards you a little bit. You can kind of move slowly here where you feel. Just do some pointing down and then rotate back up, tip in, like just see what feels good for you here. Because depending on your wrists, a different spot might feel really good for you. This one is hard for me. So that's where I know that this is the one that I need to do more, and I need to make sure that I roll my shoulders down. Immediately those start creeping up. Just getting a few more of those in, warming up those wrists, and then shaking that out. Now we're going to stick out an arm straight ahead and make a fist that you're going to point down at the ground. You can rotate your elbow up if that's comfortable for you, and then just taking your other hand and pulling your wrist towards you. Making sure that you're not bending the elbow here. You want to try and get the elbow straight, not locking your elbow because that can hurt yourself as well, but just as straight as possible so you're really feeling that stretch in the forearm. And again, you can tilt the wrist side to side, see what feels good here. Try to move only the hand and not the whole arm, because then that's kind of counterintuitive. Stretching that out, reversing that stretch that we just did. Shake that out. And other hand, point your fist down and pull that back towards you. And rotate to each side. Just see what feels good here, stretching that out. And giving that a shake. And up and down as well. Ooh. We are going to stretch the dorsal side of the wrist. And this is the one that is a little goofy. It's your glasses. So we're going to get our glasses on. So make your little A-OK hands here, and then we're gonna bring them back towards the face. Fingers will hit your jaw, and then twist up. You're gonna look goofy, let it happen, and put your glasses on. Now, this feels ridiculous. Roll those shoulders back down, but this is actually a very good stretch for down the side of your wrist here, which is a very common side to have issues with if you use a mouse all day. Common motions that are all the same. I find that whenever I have tension in my wrist, it is always here. So stretching that outside of that wrist is very important. And hey, it adds some levity because you can laugh at how goofy you look right now. Or you can laugh at how goofy I look right now. I'm the one on camera after all. And letting that go, shaking that out, and we're gonna roll over onto our hands and knees here. If you'd like to bring a prop under your knees, you can go ahead and do that. Just spreading out the fingers wide. We're gonna do some cat-cows here. So lining up the wrists under the shoulders and the knees under the hips. We're gonna inhale and drop the belly, tilting the tailbone up towards the sky, opening the chest. Gaze can move upwards if that's comfortable for the neck, or you can keep the gaze neutral here. Breathing deep into the belly. Let the belly fall down. And exhale, starting to curl up. Tucking the tailbone, pressing into those hands, stretching into your upper back. Squeeze that air out. And inhale, dropping the belly, feeling that stretch through the stomach. And exhale, curling back, stretching the upper back out. And just beginning to flow with your own breath here. You can close down the eyes if that's comfortable. Just really focusing on squeezing all of the air out here, pressing into your upper back, peeling the scapula apart, and then fully releasing that on the inhale. We'll do a few more here. And completing your last exhale, we're gonna start to sink the hips back. I'm gonna get some pillows under my knees here. And opening the knees out wide, big toes to touch, sinking the hips back towards the heels and releasing down into your child's pose. Forehead comes to the mat. Breathing here, feeling the hips start to release. Let's just take a moment to tune back in here in our child's pose. And just tune in with your body and tune in with your mind. Notice what's happening already with this practice. We're only a few minutes in here. Noticing any old patterns if you're already feeling like you're not doing enough. Feeling like your body isn't doing good enough. And let's just go ahead and remember that it is 2021. It's a fresh start, it's a new year. And right now, let's make a promise to ourselves to try our best to let that go. Excuse my language, but am I wrong? Just release those old thoughts, those old patterns. Let them go. This is so much easier said than done, of course, but every day with a little bit of practice, you can totally change your mindset. And this will totally help you move through your life as well if you're not always speaking negatively to yourself. It starts with you. So if you notice throughout this practice that you're thinking that you're less than, or you're not doing good enough, or you're not adequate in any way, catch yourself in that moment, just like you would with meditation. You catch yourself when you notice you're thinking and you bring yourself back to your breath. Catch yourself when you're thinking these thoughts, and I want you to think of something beautiful about yourself. And this can be a very hard practice for people. We are raised in an age where you're almost made to feel inadequate because that keeps the machine running. But just think of something, even if it's a tiny, tiny little thing at first. Oh, I like my laugh. I like my hair. It can be something super simple, something very, very easy and physical like that, or it can be something too like, oh, I'm really funny. I sing well. It can be anything. Just think of something beautiful about yourself anytime that those negative thoughts start to come in. Replace them. And starting to come out of that pose. Now that I've had my rant on positivity, let's go ahead and do our first downward dog. So planting the hands, spreading the fingers and tucking the toes, starting to lift the tailbone up high and starting to pedal out the feet, doing whatever you need to do to release into this downward dog. Pressing into the pads of the fingers. You can wag your tail. Sinking through the shoulders. Extending the tailbone up to the sky. You can stay up on your toes if that's more comfortable. Keep a big bend in the knees if you'd like. You do not have to have straight legs in a downward facing dog. And once you've hit your pose here, this is where I like to tune in with my rib cage and my core. Am I using my core at all right now? No, she is completely loose. So once you're in your pose, you have your form. Just notice little things like that so you can start to tighten your core slightly, zip your rib cage up, and make this a bit stronger of a pose. And inhale, step your feet out about mat width apart. I don't know about you, but I ate a lot over Christmas, so I need some space for my belly. And you can just start to sway a little bit here, starting to come towards a forward fold. Just getting some movement. You can keep a big bend in the knees if you'd like. If you want to widen your legs a little bit further, you can do that. I like to reach for opposite elbows. And notice if all of the weight is in your heels here. You want to bring some of that weight forward. And what can help with this, if you feel like you're going to fall, bring a bend into your knees, or also think of scooping the lower belly. And that personally always helps me so I don't feel like I'm going to fall forward. And then shaking the head, yes and no. Maybe swaying side to side. I'm just beginning to feel gravity pulling your spine long. Releasing down. And then beginning to wiggle your feet a little wider if you need to, coming down into Malasana, your Garland Pose or Yogi Squat. I like to kind of rock side to side until my feet find their perfect position here, pressing the elbows against the knees so that you're not just sitting here sunk into this pose. You want to be active, squeezing the pelvic floor, squeezing the core. Squatting here for a moment. And then releasing the hands down, coming back up into your forward fold, placing the hands and stepping back into our downward facing dog. We're going to open the hip here. So stepping the left foot towards the middle a little bit more. You can sweep your right foot up and open, so kicking your heel towards your bum. Opening that hip, you can give it a little rotate here. And trying to keep your weight equal in both hands here. And stretching that leg back up, we're gonna sweep it forward, coming into our Pigeon Pose. So you can always roll onto one butt cheek and bring your leg more parallel depending on how that feels for your knees. I have very tender knees, so mine is nowhere near parallel, and that is totally fine. So coming up tall here, and then hinging from the hip and coming forward. You can bring the elbows to the floor, to a block. You can stay up on your hands if you'd like. Just starting to release into that hip. And breathing here. In and out through the nose. Hip openers can be very intense for people, so it's important that you keep breathing here. We want to keep this practice, as it is a bit of a nighttime wind down practice. We want to keep it as little aggravation as possible. If that's what comes up, you don't want to tamp that down or anything, let it be what it is, but you can always help yourself through that by breathing in a pose. And with your breath, just finding any point in your body where you might still be gripping or holding on here. So send your breath to that spot and see if there's something that you can release. Just have a few more breaths here, stick with it. Sinking over onto that butt cheek, we're going to swing our back leg around and we're going to come into double pigeon or fire log pose. So I'll twist to the front so you guys can see here. So you want to bring whatever that front leg was, you want to make sure that it's now parallel, flexing the toes back towards the knee to protect the knee. So make that parallel to your mat. If you have very tight hips like I do, your knee will likely be relatively high up like mine is. Totally fine. Some people will come into this pose and go, what's the big deal? That's totally fine too. It just depends on your anatomy. So then you take your other foot and you want to bring it right up onto your knee. Again, flexing the toes back to protect both knees. So this is where mine's at. My hips are very, very tight. I have not been active at all in the gym, yoga, anything during this holiday break, so I am very tight right now. So this is about as far as I'm coming. Some people will be flat on the ground with both their knees right now and barely be feeling anything. If that is you, if you want to feel more of a stretch, beginning to inhale tall and exhale hinging over and coming down over the legs. If this is you, or if this is you, or if you couldn't even get this foot up here, who cares? You're still in the pose, you're still doing your best. So as long as you can feel something, you want to feel it in your hip joints, maybe in your glutes a little bit. That's where you want to mostly be feeling the sensation. If it's in your knees at all, you can recline onto your back and do figure four stretch where you're pulling your leg through. That's great too if the seated one is too much for you. So wherever you land here is perfect. So just breathing, again, ensuring that the toes are flexing back, there's no pain in the knees. And this is a very, very intense pose if you have tight hips, so just try to stick with it. Whenever you feel like you want to exit a pose, if you're like, okay, that's it, I'm done, stay for one more breath. That is the yogi rule that I have gleaned over the years. Stay for one more breath. And then if you do that, maybe two. See, push yourself, not in pain, but in sensation. For a couple more. Noticing if your shoulders have crept up to your ears. Noticing if you're frowning. Release the jaw. It's only a yoga pose. Slowly coming back out, releasing the legs in front of you and just giving those a wiggle. Ooh, that is something. We're gonna come into a bit of a forward fold here. I'm putting a pillow under my heels because they get very, like they're too bony for the floor. I'm not eloquent today. So growing up tall, we don't want to pull out our bum flesh here because the way that your hamstring attaches, it would be just exposed on the floor, and that can cause some pain in the top of the hamstring. So just notice if you do tend to do that. If you do have pain in your hamstrings, perhaps that's something that you have a tendency to do. I'll typically just like do a little bit of a wiggle just to make sure that I'm sort of on the flattest part of my sit bone, but just try not to actually pull the bum flesh out of the way. So we're growing up nice and tall here. And then we are going to exhale, hinging at the hip, keeping your back straight. So in keeping the back straight, you may not be able to go anywhere near where you normally could if you were to immediately just collapse in this pose. That's totally fine. Just sit with that, flexing the toes back towards the face. You can hold on to the feet, you can hold on to the ankles, the shins, whatever feels comfortable for you. Inhales, grow taller, create space. Exhales, bring you a little bit farther down, again, keeping the back straight. And last time, we're gonna inhale, create space, grow tall, try to hinge a little bit more, go as far as you can with the flat back. And now we can drop the head, sink forward. Feeling the lower back release. And inhaling, coming back up. We are going to roll over onto our hands and knees again and press back up into our downward facing dog. And now we're going to step the right foot a little bit more towards the center, even weight in both hands. We're going to sweep that left leg up and open, heel towards the butt. Just releasing that hip. You can give that a roll. And then lifting that leg up, we're going to sweep it up ahead. Coming into Pigeon Pose, growing up tall first, and then hinging forward. And you might already notice a huge difference in sides. This is my easier side. So I already feel good in this pose on this side. Just noticing that. There's no shame in that. Everyone has differences between the two sides of their body, so no worries there, as long as you're always stretching them equally. Maybe one day they'll meet up. Continuing to breathe. Observing the breath flowing in and out through the body. Noticing if you're clenching your jaw, perhaps you're clenching your butt. Send your breath there and release that, let that go. Relax into the pose. Release the tension in the face. Out, just rolling over onto that butt cheek. And again, I'm going to rotate towards you guys. We're going to bring that front foot up, swing the back leg around, make this front leg parallel, flexing the toes back, and bringing this back leg up onto that knee, flexing those toes back as well. And starting to come into the stretch. I really feel this one in my glute. Whew. So just coming to where is comfortable. Again, if you are a lot farther down and you want a little bit more of a stretch, you can inhale, grow up tall, and then hinge over and reach over flat over your legs. If you're in my boat with me, just try not to clench your jaw too hard. Try to continue breathing. Endeavor to breathe through this. I find double pigeon really interesting if, like me, you have, I don't want to say wildly different, but pretty different levels in your hips between one side and the other. I have one side, this side is very, very tight for me always. So it's interesting to notice double pigeon because double pigeon is obviously using both hips. One, the top one is obviously getting a little bit more, but it is using both hips. So it's interesting to see the differences in a pose that's using both. So on the other side, I still found that I was up really high, but that was because this knee couldn't go down, but my top knee felt better. So I felt I could flatten that one more. Whereas on this side, I almost feel like I can come down close to the ground because this is my okay hip, but this still feels so high up, there's no way this is coming down. So it's just play around with it and get a little bit of movement. There's nothing saying, no rule saying that you have to get into a pose and then don't move until your breaths are done and then you move on. That's not a thing. You can do whatever you want as long as it feels good and it's, you know, good form and stuff and you're not hurting yourself. So just play around, like you can kind of move in the poses. They're not made to be stagnant. So I like to kind of lean in and out just to notice where I'm feeling things and what the differences are. So just play around, learn your body, learn your joints. It's important to know. And now you're probably screaming at me to get us out of this pose. So let's go ahead and release the legs out long. Wiggling those out. So we are now going to come down onto our backs. As gracefully as possible. Just coming down flat. If this isn't comfortable, you can always do something seated. Or come into a fetal position. I'm just getting some movement. Whenever I do a bedtime, nighttime practice, I kind of like to get a little bit of organic movement in between the poses, just to take it less seriously. So we're gonna do one more hip thing, coming into figure four. So crossing one leg over the other with the ankle on the knee, flexing the toes back to protect the knee. If this is it for you, you can stay here. If you'd like, you can lift that bottom leg up, reach through, and then sink back towards the floor. Keeping both toes flexed. Pressing that knee open. Breathing. And releasing that down, placing both feet on the floor, perhaps windshield wiper in the knees. And then crossing the opposite ankle over the knee, flexing the toes back. Again, you can stay here or you can reach through, pulling that knee closer towards you. Releasing that down, rocking the knees side to side. You can open the arms out into a T here. Legs can come up into about a 90-degree angle. And then just starting to drop the knees to one side. You want to keep the opposing shoulder stuck into the ground, so just only go as far as you can. And you can gaze towards that opposite hand, where the gaze can stay up, whatever is comfortable for your neck. Breathing deeply in this twist. Feeling the spine wringing out. back to center, followed by the knees. And then dropping the knees over to the opposite side. Gaze can go towards the opposite hand. Keeping that shoulder pressing into the ground. And noticing if there's a lot of resistance in a twist here. If you take a deep inhale and surrender into the twist, notice if you can automatically get any deeper in that pose. Back to center, followed by the knees. Going into a happy baby here, so reaching through the insides of the knees, holding on to the outsides of the feet, and pressing the feet up as if you're trying to stand on the ceiling while pulling down with the arms, flattening that lower back out. You can rock side to side, you can straighten one leg and then the other, just moving in a way that feels comfortable for you. And just getting any last little wiggles out before we come into our final resting pose here, our Shavasana. Releasing the legs out long. If you have tenderness in your lower back, you can keep the knees up and just open the feet out mat width and let the knees falling towards each other. If this is hard on your back, you can always take Shavasana on your front or laying in the fetal position. Just coming into that final pose, final comfortable position of stillness. Coming into stillness with the body and the mind. Letting that short practice sit in the body. Taking another scan down here just to see how the body feels. We didn't do too much movement, but we wrung ourselves out a little bit, so you might feel some sensation, some tingling. Maybe something that felt really tight at the beginning of the practice feels a little bit looser now. Noticing if your breath is maybe coming a little bit easier. Perhaps it's deepened over the course of the practice. And observing your mind. Did you remember what we decided on in our child's pose? Did you notice when negative thoughts were coming through? Did you try to replace them with positive ones? And no judgment here either if you realize now, oh crap, she's right, I totally was thinking negative things and didn't even think about it. It's fine. It was just this one practice, this one moment in time. Of your whole lifetime to change this thought pattern, this thought process. There's no time constraint. But that's all right now. Just think of one thing that you love about yourself. This can be physical, it can be personality trait, quality, anything. It can be small or it can be major. Just think of one thing that you can happily say, I love that about myself. Don't follow it up with anything. Just sit with that thought, joy in the knowledge of that one thing. Feeling the body release into the ground. Letting go of the last year. Letting go of the practice now. Letting go of your day. Settling down into stillness and quiet. Arms overhead and taking a full body stretch. And at your own pace, on your own time, just bringing the knees up. And rolling over to either side, coming to the fetal position. You can use your bottom arm as a pillow. Just rest here for a moment. Using your top hand to help press you up. Just coming into a comfortable seat. Hands come to Anjali Mudra, heart center. That is the sound of my cat scratching up my couch. Bowing the head slightly. Taking a moment to feel gratitude for yourself, for your practice. And just feeling satisfied and content with the knowledge that you did everything today that you could. You did everything today that you needed to do. And you are enough. You are valued. You are worthy. You are perfection, and you are love. Today's practice with 3 ohms. So you can ohm along with me, or you can just sit in silence. I like to place a hand on my chest just to feel the vibration of the sound. So taking a deep inhale. Namaste. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope that you had a great New Year's. I hope that you are feeling good and feeling optimistic. Obviously, everyone makes a very big deal out of New Year's as if the change in one day will suddenly change our whole lives. So in that sense, don't feel any pressure. Your life is not going to change all in one day. There is no pressure to do so. I personally spent the first day of my new year sitting on the couch watching TV and eating snacks, just like how I ended my year. I felt a little bit guilty for a second, and then I remembered that that's life, and it was my last day of vacation. So give yourself a break this year, and try and do your best to make this year a year of love and acceptance, not only for others, but also for yourself. I am here for you every Saturday. Please subscribe to this channel if you would like to see those videos every week. You can connect with me on Instagram at Harmonious Hippy. Comment down below and let me know what you enjoyed about today's practice. If you have a specific move or moves that you like to do to ready you for bed, to ready you for sleep, and keep practicing. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys so much. Happy New Year. Good night.